I'm going to be reading part of chapter 1 of The Deep by Alma Katsu. My first time here, so please forgive any mispronunciations or stumbles along the way. Also, please forgive any noise you hear in the background. That could be my daughter or my dog or the apocalypse, I guess. Chapter 1, October 1916, Morningate Asylum, Liverpool. She's not mad. Annie Hebley pokes her needle into the coarse gray linen, a soft color, like the feathers of the doves that entrap themselves in the chimneys here, fluttering and crying out, sometimes battering themselves to death in a vain effort to escape. She is not mad. Annie's eyes follow the needle as it runs the length of the hem, weaving in and out of fabric, in and out, in and out, sharp and shining and so precise. But there is something in her that is hospitable to madness. Annie has come to understand the erratic ways of the insane, the crying fits, incoherent babblings, violent flinging of hands and feet. There is, after days and weeks and years, a kind of comforting rhythm to them. But no, she is not one of them. Of that she is certain. Certain as the Lord and the Blessed Virgin, her da might once have said. There are a dozen female patients hunched over their sewing, making the room warm and stuffy despite the meagerness of the fire. Work is thought to be palliative to nervous disorders, so many of the inmates are given jobs, particularly those who are here due more to their own poverty than any ailment of mind or body. While most of the indigent are kept in workhouses, Annie has learned quite a few of them find their ways to the asylums instead, if there are any empty beds to keep them, not to mention the women of sin. Whatever their reasons for turning up at Morningate, most of the women here are meek enough to... Whatever their reasons for turning up at Morningate, most of the women here are meek enough and bend themselves to the nurse's direction. But there are a few of whom Annie is truly afraid. She pulls in tight to herself as she works, not wanting to brush up against them, unable to shake the suspicion that madness might pass from person to person like a disease, that it festers the way a fine mold grows inside a milk bottle left too long in the sun, undetectable at first, but soon sour and corrupting until all the milk is spoiled. Annie sits on a hard little stool in the needle room with her morning's labor puddled in her lap, but it is the letter tucked inside her pocket that brushes up against her thoughts unwillingly, a glowing ember burning through the linen of her dress. Annie recognized the handwriting before she even saw the name on the envelope. She has reread it now at least a dozen times, in the dark cover of night, when no one is looking. She kisses it like a crucifix. As if drawn to the sin of Annie's thoughts, a nurse materializes at her shoulder. Annie wonders how long she's been standing there, studying Annie. This one is new. She doesn't know Annie yet. Not well, anyway. They leave Annie to the late arrivals on staff who haven't yet learned to be frightened of her. Anne, dear, Dr. Davenport would like to see you. I'm to escort you to his office. Annie rises from her stool. None of the other women glance up from their sewing. The nurses never turn their backs to the patients of Morningate, so Annie shuffles down the corridor, the nurse's presence like a hot poker at her back. If Annie could get a moment alone, she would get rid of the letter, stash it behind the drapes, tuck it under the carpet runner. She mustn't let the doctor find it. Just thinking of it again sends a tingle of shame through her body. But she is never alone at Morningate. In the dusty reflection of the hall windows, they appear like two ghosts. Annie in her pale, dove-gray uniform, the nurse in her long cream skirt, apron, and wimple. Past a long series of closed doors, locked rooms in which the afflicted mutter and wail. What do they scream about? What torments them so? For some, it was gin. Others were sent here by husbands, fathers, even brothers who don't like the way their women think, don't like that they are outspoken. But Annie shies away from learning the stories of the truly mad. There's undoubtedly tragedy there, and Annie's life had enough sadness. Well, that's good. be finishing this book probably this week, so I'm very excited. Alma, I hope you sell 100 billion copies, and thanks for letting me do this.